Hello, my name is Miriam McLemore, and I'm an enterprise strategist with AWS. And I'm thrilled to be with you today and have a few minutes of your time to talk about transforming culture and the competitive advantage that that can provide to you and your organization. As an enterprise strategist, I have the great opportunity to work with customers around the world on their journey to adopting cloud technology and driving organizational change. Prior to joining AWS, I was the corporate CIO at the Coca-Cola Company. I was with Coca-Cola for many years, 26 in all, and I retired from Coca-Cola and had the great opportunity to join AWS 4 years ago. So I'll share a little bit about the journey that I went through and the journey that other customers that I've had the great opportunity to work with have been on. I do think, that's as a CIO, one of the biggest challenges is figuring out how to lead your organization through a transformation. And when I say your organization, I mean the broader enterprise organization. And through the many hundreds now of customer interactions I've had the opportunity to have, we've come up with a list of characteristics of what really describes an organization that has been able to create a more agile culture and what some in the industry called being digitally transformed. And for me, that list starts with having a deeply shared sense of purpose of the journey that you are on and that you are on with your customers and your team. And so getting clear on what you're about and what your purpose is, and making sure that everybody understands that and is driving in the same direction is absolutely critical, because that's how you get the boats rowing at the same cadence and down the same river. I think second, at least from what I've seen from companies that are making great progress, is having these small autonomous cross-functional teams. Certainly, we all know speed matters in business, and smaller teams that have more autonomy are just faster. They're faster at delivering new capabilities, faster at innovating, and they can speak to one another much more quickly without the overhead of large organization structures. But that doesn't mean we're seeking, anarchy. We believe in standardized ways of working. Certainly at Amazon, we believe in what we call mechanisms, which are the ways we work. We have certainly behaviors we expect, but having clear mechanisms that actually also help create a common language. I started my career back with Arthur Andersen and Company many years ago, and that was already a discipline that Andersen had in place, where we had standardized ways of working, so that as consultants were deployed to customers and somebody new came in, they knew where to pick up. So those are certainly important. And that structure, I believe, having a clear purpose, having those autonomous teams, and having standardized ways of working is what enables you to democratize experimentation. And that is so critical in the world today, with the speed at which our technology is changing, with the environment changing, with the new challenges like we faced over the last year and a half. Certainly, having a team that is empowered to experiment is critical. But that is partnered with a performance orientation. You have to be a KPI driven organization so that you know what's working and what's not working. And to have those KPIs, certainly that requires data. So, figuring out what does it mean for your organization to be data driven, and at the senior levels, using data to make decisions and demonstrating that from a cultural standpoint is so very critical. And that partners well with having a learning culture, because if you are using data to make decisions, then your team is needing to come in with data to defend decisions and to explain the path and the approach that they're taking. And so that requires a learning culture to really dive into data, understand the implications and the insights that it brings for your organization. And all of that sits on a platform of advanced technology that is so powerful today, but you have to have the culture that can leverage it. And so let's jump into a little bit more about culture. And I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and a native of Atlanta. And I love this quote from Rosalind Carter, who lives just north of here, that it takes a leader, right, to take people where they want to go. So a leader can do that, but a great leader can actually take people to where they don't know that they need to go, but ought to be. And, what a wonderful quote, and actually a wonderful woman as well. The, approach that I took and I've seen work is really three parts in transforming culture. First, you got to get a change in mindset. You've got to get people understanding your vision and communicating that effectively. And then you actually have to go through some of the heavy lifting change management. And so I'm going to break that down for you and walk through it. And hopefully some of these ideas are helpful to you. First, what do I mean by a change in mindset and approach? That goes to this focus on organizing around outcomes and products versus projects, where we all kind of grew up in that world of projects and waterfall. You've got to get that mindset change to a product orientation and a focus on maximizing technology to deliver business value, not technology for the sake of technology. So what does that look like? I certainly was trained on and grew up in a world of project management and having projects with predefined scope. And, we had all the levers of budget and schedule and cost and quality that we were managing. But you've got to move into the world of product and do continuous development and iterate and deliver products to your customers and consumers or internally to get feedback and iterate from there. And so that agile iterative approach is certainly needed in today's landscape. And the great thing is the technology is really designed to enable that very effectively. And if you can move to a business objective oriented structure so that you know clearly what outcomes that the new capabilities are driving, that certainly is the best place to be for your business, because you're very clear on the impact that technology can have for your organization, and move away from, as best you can, the old traditional models and leverage what the industry has created and new ways of working that really do increase speed and agility. We also have to move away from having an IT strategy that is separate from the business strategy and move to an integrated strategy that maximizes the value that you can drive from technology, that enables your business to have more impact and optimize in a variety of areas, whether that is supply chain or in R&D or in consumer interactions or customer B2B type of capabilities. And, so when we talk about getting an operating model that works between IT and the business, certainly often IT is measured on a different set of outcomes in the business. And so finding a way to find the middle ground, because certainly IT still has to manage operational resiliency and cost optimization and security and compliance, but there is a lot of middle ground in digitally enabling capabilities and services that allow IT to partner more closely with the business in driving points of competitive advantage. You know, a big part of that is getting out of the commodity work, you know, moving to cloud, leveraging the power that cloud provides to your organization certainly is critical. And so, second area that I believe is important for us to think about in this cultural transformation is how do you communicate your vision? It has to be simple and simple enough so your organization gets it and your business partners get it as well as across your enterprise. And so, you know, getting a elevator statement, if you want to call it that, that is a vision that is appealing and makes sense to people. It's logical. They can follow it. They can remember it. And it is clear how it is going to be achieved. It's one thing to have some grandiose vision, but if you can't articulate how you're going to get there, you know, people lose interest pretty quickly. And then once you gain momentum, how do you sustain that momentum? And at least in my experience, I found by, you know, getting started with a area of the business that was important and impactful, marketing what we were doing and doing the next, right? Do a project or two and then double it, triple it, right? As you build the muscle to operate in a new way. And so being clear on your purpose certainly is critical, and that will enable you to build peer alliances. And there are people in your business teams that really want to partner with you, want to move fast, want to deliver new capabilities for your organization. And so I often say, one, you got to sit in their seat and understand what's in it for them. But two, move the movable, right? There's some people that are not ready to get on the train with you, but there are some that are ready to drive with you. So move the movable, get going there first, and come back around to those who are more hesitant. So building those peer alliances, certainly for me, was absolutely critical in my journey, and where I see business teams coming together with the technology teams and the companies I work with, there's a lot of power and a lot of speed to market in that. And then getting executive alignment as well. So having, and typically I find, you know, the executive team wants to move more quickly, wants to innovate faster, and they can't figure out why when they make that statement, the organization doesn't do it. And so they have a role to play, right? They have to amplify the message. They can't just say it once and walk away and assume it's all going to happen smoothly. They've got to be able to remove obstacles. And in established organizations, certainly there are obstacles. At Coke, you know, over 130 years old, operating in 210 countries, there were obstacles. And so it is the responsibility of the executive team to help remove those obstacles and signal intent. We are going to operate differently. You've got to have a rapid path of escalation. That is something that is in place at Amazon and expected to escalate. It's not, you know, a career limiting move, as some would call it, to escalate issues, because again, speed matters and risk taking is important to the organization. And that's part of that delegating authority. People aren't going to take risk if they aren't empowered to do so. And if you don't accept failure as part of the journey, they also are not going to risk and truly innovate on your behalf. And then, you know, finally, the senior executive teams needs to network with one another and with their teams to make sure that again, we are all rowing in the same direction. We have a wonderful leadership principle at Amazon, which is have backbone, disagree, and commit. And what that means is that we want you to bring your point of view to the table and have backbone and disagree if you do not believe that we are headed down the right path. And please give input if we need to go back and iterate through our vision statement. And we do that very, very frequently. But once we decide, we also ask, and the important back into that leadership principle is commit. So have backbone, disagree, and then commit. When we agree to go, we want everybody on the bus, in the boat, going together. So having that mindset of, okay, we've heard the debate, now we've made a decision, because once again, speed matters in business. I've had the great privilege to work with Krista at Deutsche Bahn, and she has done a fabulous cultural transformation of her organization. And again, a pretty established organization in the German railroad. So some challenges and obstacles certainly there, but she has a wonderful story. There's a video that's available out there of her telling her story. So please look out on our site and look up Krista's story, because she really drove a transformation that has made a huge difference to her organization. It wasn't just about the management, right? It was about bringing the team along. Another really great leader that I've had the chance to speak with a few times is Joanne Olsovsky at Salesforce. And, what she's done to cultivate trust and transparency in her organization so that they can move quickly. And as you know, Salesforce, and many of you, I'm sure, are customers of Salesforce, has been very innovative and driven great capabilities for many organizations. Certainly we use them heavily at Coca-Cola and here at AWS. And then finally, I'm a football fan. I have a son who played college football, so I was thrilled when I had the opportunity to speak with Michelle McKenna about the work that she's done at the NFL. And you take something like the online draft. If you're a football fan and experience the online draft, that was a huge cultural change to make that remote, to be filming in the GM's homes and the coaches' homes and in the players' homes. And so having that foresight and digital capability to enable that is a fantastic story. And again, all of these interviews are available out on the AWS YouTube channel and site. So please listen to their stories. Some great stories around, and I like this one particularly about signaling intent, which we spoke about earlier. And so finally, the heavy lifting is certainly the change management, and that was a capability way back when I started my career with Arthur Andersen and Company, and so it's still critical today, because you can't just ignore the resistance. Certainly, you have to deal with security and compliance issues. At Amazon, we focus a lot on managing input, so I'll speak to that. And sometimes it helps to have a partner. Sometimes an outside party can help you get through the change management more effectively. So just a couple of ideas there. I think one of the barriers, at least I've run across in many of the companies that I've spoken with, are established processes. Right, we as enterprise put in processes for all sorts of good reasons, right? To make sure we have good financial stewardship, or we create good contracts and we do good procurement processes. But over time, those processes start just being blockers of progress, and you need to make sure that your processes are being metriced on enabling work to be done architecturally correct, with the right security, with the right financial steward, all those good things that those processes are in place to do, but they're not blockers of progress, and they don't take away accountability from the team that is trying to build a new capability. They are enablers of doing things according to the right process. So So switching that mindset certainly is something I've seen as very effective with companies that are moving quickly. There's just cultural resistance out there. As I mentioned, was with Coke 26 years. There were people there a lot longer than me. Um, and when you have people in organizations, they get tied to the ways things have been done, or they'll tell you, hey, we tried that before and that's not going to work. And so getting through some of the cultural resistance, understanding why people are blocking. Sometimes they're blocking because they don't believe you understand and that you're putting the company at risk. And so really digging in, and we would say at Amazon, diving deep into that resistance and getting clear whether there's an actual issue that you need to address, or there's just fear, uncertainty, and doubt that you also need to address, but address differently. And then finally, existing infrastructure, certainly, if you're going to carry all your baggage into the future, it's going to be a heavy lift. And so if anything you can do to leverage new technologies, move to cloud, streamline your existing portfolio, automate to reduce the burden of fragile old systems and move into this future in a lighter way. It's like uncluttering your home. You got to unclutter some of your technology as well so that you can leverage the new and free up your IT resources to actually work on the new versus spending all your time and resource on just running and responding to the current environment. Security, absolutely always foundational for us at AWS. Certainly, it is job zero, but for your organization as well. And so, making sure security is everyone's job and that you are automating as much as you can. And certainly, we are constantly releasing new security capabilities and new tracking capabilities so you can effectively monitor your environment. And we are happy to sit down with you and map out what do we believe is well architected in this space, if that's something that would be helpful to you, but making sure you're very clear on your security requirements and you understand the regulatory environment, but in a current model, right? What are people doing that meets all the security and regulatory needs, but in a modern architecture and using modern tools, certainly. And that requires challenging assumptions. There are a lot of assumptions out there that hold us back from the future. And I've seen organizations, financial organizations, bank, credit organizations be able to move past some of those assumptions that had held them back previously. And getting clear about alternative mitigating controls that can meet those same requirements. So, there's so much innovation in this space, and we would love to talk to you if that's a question that you might have. At Amazon, something else that we do as far as working on the culture is we manage inputs as well as outputs. All too often, I think we just look at the end result. And we do need to challenge ourselves on whether we actually set this team or this program up for success, right? Did we put the right team in place? Did we give them the resources and the accountability to actually drive the new capability? Or did we hamstring them right from the beginning by not giving them the skills that they needed? Did the team actually come back with thoughtful ideas and think through their design and actually propose innovative solutions? Did we do full design right before we started building? And that's certainly a discipline at AWS and Amazon, is to spend a lot of time upfront understanding what we need to do and the business case and the market for that before we build. Did we execute in a timely fashion? That's always been, right? Timeline has always been critical, and is even more critical today in the way and the speed at which things are changing and the speed at which technology is changing. Was quality high? Again, a traditional metric that is living into the future. And though importantly, was the technology innovative? And are you actually leaning in to leveraging new tech effectively? So, those are some of the things that we do in addition to managing outputs to make sure we set up a team for success. And I also mentioned, having a partner that has traveled this road before, whether you need help at the strategy level with your business case or at the security and compliance level. Certainly, there's some great partners out there that can help you with security competencies or organizational change partners. And we're happy, again, to share with you our partner ecosystem, which is very broad. So could have many partners who have been there and traveled that road before. So these are my three areas, at least that in the conversations that I've had with hundreds now of customers over the last 4 years, that seem to be the path to really transforming your culture to drive change. And, just a kind of closer list for you. When you're trying to be more customer centric, we, of course, at Amazon believe that customer obsession is our primary objective and primary leadership principle. And so some things that requires that you have a joint operating model with your business teams, as we discussed early, that your teams have autonomy and the authority over their work, and they're small enough so they don't require a lot of overhead to speak to one another. That innovation is not just a team off to a side, that innovation is available to all and the responsibility of all. That you learn to adapt early and often. Our environment, our world is changing pretty rapidly in front of us. And so getting to a place where you're comfortable with launching minimal viable products or minimal lovable products and testing your assumptions in production live. We're past the days of proof of concept and vaporware. The technology is pretty inexpensive and you can test pretty quickly. So I just want to thank you for your time today and spending a few minutes with me. I hope I've said some things that are valuable to you in your journey of cultural transformation. Please do remember to complete the session survey. Thank you so much. Have a great day.